Welcome back to MVM. Today we're going to be taking a look at the game Tiles of Arabian Nights from Holy Grail Games. Yes, that is Tiles. You might be familiar with the game Tales of Arabian Nights, and this is not a re-implementation, and it's not really a sequel. More like this is another game set in the same world. So many years have passed since the original telling of the 1001 Arabian Nights that were the premise of that original board game. This game, you're going to be celebrating the telling of those tales by entering into a storytelling competition. So the Sultan of Baghdad has called storytellers from all over the land to travel through the desert to Baghdad in order to tell the best story possible. Now, this is a game with a storytelling element, but it is not a storytelling game. There is a whole actual game aspect to this with the tiles that are out here on the board, because you're going to be traveling through this desert collecting tiles in a really satisfying Euro way. Now, these tiles are going to serve as inspiration for your story, but they're also going to score you points in a lot of ways over the course of the game and allow you to do some neat little engine building along the way. So there is a few different things going on here that culminate together in that storytelling competition. So each player is going to choose a color and gather a few things, including their player board. Now, this is where you're going to place all the tiles that you gather. You'll notice that you have a few basic stats. You have basic movement and attack values, but you can expand those by grabbing tiles on the board. You're also going to have a place for different types of resources and locations and gold even that you can collect. Everyone's going to have one of these. They're going to have some voting tokens that will come in handy. They're going to have a player figure that sits out on the board. And they're going to have both a score token and a storyteller point token. This matters because the way that you score your storytelling points is very unique. Now, I've already set up this board, and you're going to see that there are tiles in most of the spots and a little compass down here that's going to tell you kind of where to refill these tiles. Each of these tiles does something completely different. It's either going to be a resource or good that you can trade in the market. It's going to be an item that can somehow upgrade your caravan, or it's going to be a monster that you can fight. And you can tell by looking at the back side of the tile, which is what we see, you can tell kind of what it's going to be as far as what the icon is, and you can tell if there's going to be any kind of cost associated with that tile. Some of the tiles have costs printed directly on them. These are oftentimes goods that you need to have in order to access that tile. So you're not spending them, you just need to have them at this point in the game. So the crux of the game really is to move around collecting these tiles and following whatever effects those tiles do. Your turn is fairly simple. You're going to move a number of spaces equal to the number of camels you see on your player board, the printed value plus any boosts that you might have from other tiles, and then you're going to take an action based on where you end up. There are three possible places you can end up. The first and the most common being on a tile. So if you move a certain number of spaces, you'd simply take that tile and you would place it wherever it's supposed to go. For example, I have a gold here. I would place it in my player board underneath the gold spot. It kind of just slots in there, and you can hold on to that. You're going to do the same thing with all of the basic tiles, your resources, your swords, your movement. You're also going to find potential monsters that you're going to want to fight. And this is actually one of the ways that you're going to score points during the game. So it's not just about telling stories, it's also about fighting these monsters. And you're going to see these monster tiles marked with a skull. Whenever you defeat a monster tile, you're actually going to slot that on the top part of your board. And you'll see that it starts in 1 and goes all the way to 21. Every time you kill a monster, it's going to come to your player board. If it's the same type, then it has to go where the other monster of the same type is. But if it's different, you can actually place it next to it, and you can continue chaining these. You'll want to kill every different monster type in order to reach the end of that track. The other thing that you can actually do during the game is collect resources. You're going to have a market board, and this market board is going to let you trade in resources for points. You're going to see all the different types of resources that you have on the top. You're going to see also that there is a number on the side. This is going to denote how many victory points you'll receive for the number of those goods that you trade in at once. So you're actually benefited by saving up a lot of these resources and triggering these spaces when you have a lot to trade in. However, you can only trade those in when you reach one of these market spots. This is another type of tile that will be on the board, and you'll see that it's denoted with a lightning bolt. Any lightning bolt tiles are tiles that are triggered instantly as soon as you land on them. Now, As you move around and take these tiles, you might end up in a space that's completely empty where there is no tile. That means there's no action you can take there. However, there is a stack of these limited tiles that are basically one-time use resources. You can choose to either take a camel or a sword, and you can place that on your player board, but this is going to go away the second you use it. So you're going to be collecting these tiles frequently because you're going to need them to upgrade your player board. You really want to get those points. You really want to get the gold before you go to Baghdad, because going to Baghdad is where you can actually tell your story. At a certain point, you're going to want to return there. At the beginning of the game, every player gets 4 story tiles. These are marked 5 all the way through 20. You can think of these almost as objective tiles. On the back, it's going to show you a number of tiles that you need to turn in order to tell that story. So it's going to have these different symbols and colors printed on them. You're going to look at everything you have. When you return to Baghdad, you can choose one of these to complete. But here's where the storytelling aspect of the game comes into play. When you're discarding these tiles, you're telling a story to the other players about what you've encountered. You're talking about maybe how you got these items or what adventures happened that required you to use these items, or the people that you met along the way. Each tile is going to have a picture on it that can help inspire you to tell that story. You can work that image into the overall story as you turn in these tiles. Now, once you're done with the story, you're going to get points guaranteed. You're going to get the points that were on the back of that objective, and you're going to draw the top tile of the Sultan stack, which is going to give you some kind of bonus that could be points or another tile. This Sultan stack is one of the in-game triggers. When that is completely gone, there are no more there, then the game ends. But you're also going to get points in another way. Other players at the table who have been listening to your story are going to vote on how many points to give you. Now, these are a different kind of points. These are called storyteller points, and they're all going to be added together. Every vote that a player gave you, you're going to get that number of storyteller points, plus any storyteller points that were on that Sultan tile, plus you're going to get 1 storyteller point for every one of those objective tiles you've already completed, because you do get better at telling stories over time. So for example, let's say that I've scored 15 points for my story. The next story that I tell, if I don't go above 15 points, then my story is just set at 15. 15 still becomes the best story that I've told this game. So once one player has told all 4 of their stories, meaning they've turned in all of their different resources, then the game is over. So that can trigger the end of the game, and so can this Baghdad stack, like I said. So you've got to be careful. You want to at least get over there and try to tell stories, because you want to try to get these Baghdad tokens if possible, because those can have a lot of points as well. Now, certain actions like telling a story or visiting the marketplace and selling your goods are going to cause the board to replenish. That's why this compass token that's in the bottom corner matters. Whenever you discard tiles for any reason, be it selling to the market or discarding the tiles required when you complete a story, you're going to draw back up that many tiles to replenish that many spaces on the board, starting from the compass corner and moving outward. Now, these tiles are going to be better. They usually have 2 symbols instead of 1, and you can turn in these tiles to the market and to your story. Like, they're just better. So the later you go in the game, the more you can clear out early to refill these tiles, the better. So you're going to refill those all out, and then play is going to continue clockwise. Basically, once you take your action, you're done, and play is just going to continue along this way. Now, there is a more advanced variant that's going to have you using kind of these empty star spaces that you see here on the board, and you're free to use that variant as well, but this is kind of how the basic game plays. At the end of the game, once you've completed one of those in-game conditions, you're still going to score. And you're going to see at the top how many points you get for being in whichever position. If you've told the best story, you're actually getting 23 points, then 16, all the way down to 5 points. But that's just one way you can score points. You can also score points for having the complete sets of monsters. Like I said earlier, you're going to look at the number that's on your player board, and you're going to score those points as well. These points are all going to be combined together. You've got a victory point track here along the outside edge, and that's going to be determining your final score. Of course, you've gotten points from selling in the market, which can actually give you a lot of points if you have some really big trades. You're going to add all that up, and whoever has the highest score is deemed the best storyteller, and they've won this year's storytelling competition. So Tiles of Arabian Nights is on GameFound right now. You can take a look at their page to see what all the funnel components are going to look like, what stretch goals they have planned, and things like that. So please take a look at their page. But like always, I want to thank you for liking, subscribing, following us here at MVM. We really appreciate it. And until we see you again, keep having fun at the table.
Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.